There is something sitting in your chest right now that you have not fully named. Not yet. It has been there for a while, pressing quietly against the inside of your ribs the way water presses against a dam, not breaking through, not making a sound, just holding. You have been moving through your days with it, going to work, answering messages, showing up for other people, and carrying this unnamed weight like a stone in your pocket that you have grown so accustomed to that you sometimes forget it is there. Until tonight. Because tonight, the full moon rose at 12 degrees and 21 minutes of Libra, and it brought with it the particular kind of light that does not illuminate gently. It exposes. Full moons have a reputation for being romantic events, soft and silver and poetic. And there is truth in that image. But the other truth, the one that astrologers speak about when they are not softening the message for comfort, is that full moons are pressure events. The moon and the sun face each other from opposite ends of the zodiac, and the tension between them creates a force that pushes what is hidden toward the surface. Whatever you have been pressing down, whatever you have been rationalizing, accommodating, or quietly swallowing, gets pushed up. Not because the universe is cruel, because the universe is honest. And on April 2nd, 2026, that honesty arrives dressed in the particular colors of Libra: relationships, balance, what you have given, what you have withheld, and what you have been pretending is fine when it is not fine at all. You may have felt this building before the moon was even full. The days leading into a Libra full moon do not pass quietly. They accumulate. Conversations carry more weight than usual. A look from someone you love lands differently. A routine moment, an ordinary morning, a meal shared, a silence between sentences, suddenly feels loaded with something that has no name. You find yourself waking up earlier than you should, lying in the dark with a feeling you cannot classify. Not quite sadness, not quite anger. Something between the two, something dense and clarifying at the same time, like the air before a storm. That pressure was the moon building toward its peak. That was the dam approaching its limit. And tonight, the limit arrived. Your soul arrived in this lifetime carrying a map. That map is your birth chart, and it is nothing less than the universe's record of who you are, what you came to experience, and what larger force is quietly orchestrating your path right now. A personal reading built from the exact moment and location of your birth goes far deeper than any collective forecast. It decodes your sun, moon, and rising with real precision. It dives into whichever area of life is most alive for you right now, whether that is love and relationships, career and abundance, or your spiritual path unfolding. It surfaces the hidden karmic patterns running beneath your choices, maps a month-by-month forecast for 2026 directly onto your natal chart, and closes with a personal transmission about where you are in your own story and what your soul is readying itself for. Delivered as an audio reading and a detailed written report, straight to your inbox within 48 hours. The link is below. Before we go into what this full moon means for each of the 12 signs, you need to understand the full architecture of the sky on this date. Because the moon at 12 degrees Libra is not operating in isolation. It is surrounded by a configuration of planets that gives this particular lunation its specific character and its unusually sharp edge. The sun is at 12 degrees of Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, the sign of pure individual identity, of the self that has not yet been diluted by compromise or social conditioning. The sun in Aries is the sun of I am, unapologetically, without footnote or apology. It is the purest expression of conscious selfhood available in the zodiac, and right now, it is directly opposite the moon in Libra, the sign of the other, the sign of partnership and mirroring, and the refined art of finding the middle ground between what I need and what we have agreed to. This opposition is the spine of every Libra full moon, the structural tension between you as an individual and you as part of a pair, between what you actually want and what you have trained yourself to want, in order to keep things smooth. Saturn sits at 5 degrees of Aries, close to the sun. This is significant, and it is not comfortable. Saturn in Aries is the planet of reality, discipline, and structural truth, right next to the light source of conscious identity. What this means in practice is that the sun is not shining freely right now. It is being asked to be accountable. Whatever your identity has been performing, whatever version of yourself you have been presenting in your relationships, because it was easier or safer or expected, Saturn is standing right there asking whether that performance is built on something real. Saturn does not accept performance as its final answer. It wants to know what is underneath. Additionally, Saturn forms a sextile with Pluto at 5 degrees of Aquarius. This aspect became exact on March 28th, just days before this full moon, and its influence is still fully active. A sextile between Saturn and Pluto is a productive tension, a pressure that asks what you are willing to rebuild from what has already been dismantled. Pluto in Aquarius is doing the slow, deep work of restructuring collective systems, but on a personal level it governs the release of power dynamics that no longer serve authentic life. The sextile to Saturn means that the dismantling is not random destruction. It is purposeful clearing in service of honest construction. Jupiter is at 15 degrees of Cancer in its final months of a transit that began in the middle of last year. Jupiter in Cancer is one of the most emotionally generative placements in astrology. It expands the capacity for feeling, for nurturing, for belonging, for the particular kind of home that is not a location but a state of being. And right now, during this full moon, Jupiter forms a square to both the Sun and the Moon, creating a T-square, a three-way tension that is the most dynamically unstable and therefore most generative configuration a full moon can carry. The square from Jupiter in Cancer to the Sun in Aries and Moon in Libra creates a pressure around emotional truth. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. Squaring the Sun, it expands ego, ambition, and the sometimes uncomfortable fact of how much space you actually want to take up in your own life. Squaring the Moon, it expands emotional need, the longing for belonging and care, the hunger for connection that is not transactional but genuinely intimate. The tension between these expanded forces and the relational axis of Aries and Libra means that what has been quietly carried in your chest is no longer small enough to keep quiet. Jupiter has made it too large for the container you have been keeping it in. Mercury is at 13 degrees of Pisces. Mercury in Pisces does not process reality through argument or analysis. It processes through feeling, through the thing that keeps surfacing in the body before the mind has words for it. In the days around this full moon, what you know and what you can prove are different things, and the knowing is the more important of the two. Pay attention to the feelings that arrive without explanation. Pay attention to the thing you find yourself thinking about at the precise moment you are trying not to think about it. Venus has just entered Taurus, completing her ingress from Aries on April 1st. This is Venus in her home sign, in the sign where she is most herself, most grounded, most genuinely receptive. The urgency that characterized Venus in Aries, the chasing, the reaching, the desire that felt more like pressure than pleasure, has given way to something quieter and deeper. Venus in Taurus does not pursue. She receives, she inhabits, she builds. And the things this full moon illuminates about your relationships and your values will land differently in the days ahead, because Venus in Taurus will process them slowly, honestly, and with the particular patience that only Earth can provide. Mars is at 22 degrees of Pisces. Mars in this water sign operates beneath the surface. Its drive is spiritual rather than strategic. The action it calls for is internal first. This is the kind of Mars that erodes rather than demolishes, that moves through intuitive prompting rather than decisive frontal charge. The changes that begin after this full moon may not look dramatic in their early stages. They will feel true, which is ultimately more important. All planets are currently moving direct. Not a single retrograde in the sky. This is unusually rare and it matters. When all planets move forward simultaneously, the energy of the cosmos is flowing without obstruction. There is no backward pull, no revisiting, no delay imposed by retrograde motion. Whatever clarity, This full moon delivers. Whatever truth surfaces tonight, there is nothing in the sky preventing you from moving with it. The path forward is open. Now let us talk about what you have actually been carrying, because the phrase in the title of this video is not metaphor. It is description. Most people who are drawn to astrology are drawn to it because they have learned to pay attention to the invisible layer of their experience. The layer that does not show up in conversation, that does not appear in photographs, that nobody asks about because it exists in the interior space that social life does not typically reach. What gets carried in that interior space, what accumulates there over weeks and months, is usually not one dramatic thing. It is a collection of small things that individually seem manageable but together constitute a weight. The thing you wanted to say in a conversation and chose not to. The dynamic in a relationship that you have noticed and chosen to leave unnamed because naming it would require a response you are not sure you are ready for. The need you have been dismissing as excessive when it is not excessive at all, but simply real. The way you have been filling a role that fits the expectations of people around you more than it fits the actual dimensions of who you are. Libra is the sign most practiced in the art of accommodation. Not from weakness, let that be said clearly, because the popular misconception about Libra is that its diplomacy is a form of passivity. It is not. Libra's accommodation is a sophisticated social intelligence, the ability to read what others need and modulate accordingly. The problem is that this intelligence, used without boundaries, becomes a kind of self-erasure. You modulate so well for so long, for so many people, that you eventually lose the clear signal of your own position. You know what everyone else needs. You become uncertain about what you need. And the weight you carry, the weight this full moon is exposing tonight, is often the accumulated cost of exactly that kind of prolonged self-editing. With Saturn in Aries pressing against the Libra axis right now, the question this full moon is asking is not gentle. It is, who are you when you are not performing balance, when you are not managing the emotional temperature of a room, when you are not translating your actual feelings into a more palatable version for the sake of keeping the peace? Who is in there beneath the diplomacy? Saturn in Aries does not ask this question to be cruel. It asks because it knows, as every earth sign knows, that nothing can be built on a performance. Structures require an honest foundation. Relationships require the real person showing up, not the curated version of the person, not the version that has decided in advance what it is and is not allowed to need. The weight you have been carrying is not a flaw. It is the signal that an honest reckoning is overdue. And tonight, the full moon made sure it could no longer stay quiet. A T-square involving the Sun, the Moon, and Jupiter in Cancer is one of the most emotionally productive configurations astrology produces, and also one of the most uncomfortable to live through because a T-square does not allow equilibrium. It creates a dynamic instability, three bodies pulling in different directions simultaneously, that forces resolution through action rather than through waiting. The Sun in Aries wants the individual truth, the self, the real self. Not the one shaped for social acceptance, but the one that existed before it learned what the room preferred. Jupiter in Cancer is expanding the emotional world, deepening the hunger for genuine belonging, for love that does not require you to compress who you are in order to fit into it. And the Moon in Libra is sitting in the middle, as Libra always does, genuinely wanting the harmony but beginning to feel the structural impossibility of maintaining harmony between a self that is asserting its individuality and a need for connection that wants depth rather than performance. The resolution point of this T-square, the place where the energy wants to discharge, is opposite Jupiter, which means it falls in Capricorn. The energy of this configuration wants to ground itself in something practical and real. It wants to build. It wants to take what the tension has revealed and construct something from it that will still be standing in 5 years. This is not the astrology of dramatic gestures followed by the same patterns. This is the astrology of genuine structural change in how you relate to others and to yourself. For many people, the resolution of this T-square will look like a conversation that has been waiting to happen, or a decision that has been deferred because the timing never felt right, except that there is no right time for things like this. There is only the moment when the weight becomes impossible to continue carrying. It might look like finally naming the thing you have been not naming, or it might look like nothing visible at all, just an internal shift, a private acknowledgement in the quiet of your own mind that something has changed and you are no longer going to pretend otherwise. What the T-square will not tolerate is staying in the same position. Something must move, something must give. And the beauty of this full moon, for all the discomfort it carries, is that Jupiter is involved. Jupiter, even in a square, brings a particular quality of abundance to whatever it touches. The expansion it creates in Cancer, in the emotional world, in the hunger for genuine belonging, is real. The possibility on the other side of this tension is not small. It is large. It is the size that Jupiter always brings. What is being asked for is not a diminishment, but a reorientation towards something that is actually large enough to hold the life you are genuinely meant to be living. Aries, you are at the center of this full moon story. The sun in your sign forms the opposing force to the Libra moon, which means this lunation is illuminating your relationship world with a particular directness. Something about a partnership, a friendship, a professional collaboration, or a creative collaboration is being brought into full daylight right now. You have been in the fire of Aries season, feeling the surge of individual identity, the renewed sense of your own direction and will. The full moon is asking whether the relationships in your life have room for that full individual, whether the partnerships you have invested in can hold the version of you that is currently emerging. Some will, some may not. The clarity arriving tonight is not there to break what is genuinely solid. It is there to distinguish the solid from the appearances of solidity. Taurus, this full moon activates your 6th house of daily life, health, work, and the rhythms of the everyday. Something about the way you have been organizing your daily existence is asking for a more honest evaluation. The weight you have been quietly carrying may be in the domain of how you spend your time, what you have agreed to take on, the way your routine either supports or slowly depletes you. Venus, your ruling planet, has just arrived in your sign, and she will spend the weeks ahead grounding and stabilizing what this full moon illuminates. But first, the illumination. Pay attention to what your body is communicating right now. It has been speaking for a while. This is the moment to actually listen. Gemini, the full moon falls in your 5th house of creativity, expression, love, and the kind of joy that is not manufactured but simply arises when you are fully in contact with your own aliveness. Something in this domain is reaching its fullness. A creative project may be ready to complete or share. A romantic connection may be revealing its true character, whether it genuinely ignites your spirit or whether it has been a comfortable habit rather than a genuine source of life. Mercury in Pisces rules your communication right now, and it is asking you to trust what you feel over what you can argue. The truth you are carrying is one that your body knows before your mind has finished constructing a case for it. Cancer, this full moon hits your 4th house of home, roots, family, and the deepest emotional foundations of your life. What is the thing in your home life, in your family dynamics, in your sense of domestic security that has been pressing against your chest without being fully named? The 4th house is the house of private life, of what happens behind closed doors, of the emotional inheritance you carry from the generations before you. Jupiter in your sign is squaring this full moon from the 10th house of your chart, creating a tension between your public responsibilities and your private emotional needs. Something needs to change in how you balance these two domains, and the direction of that change is toward more honesty about what you actually need in your private life, not what you have been settling for. Leo, the full moon illuminates your 3rd house of communication, thought patterns, siblings, and the near environment of your daily life. Something in how you've been speaking or not speaking is reaching its fullness. There may be a conversation you have been postponing, a truth you have been expressing in indirect ways rather than directly. a relationship in your immediate environment, a sibling, a neighbor, a close colleague that is asking for more honesty than it has been receiving. Leo has a natural confidence in self-expression, but even Leo edits. Even Leo decides in certain relationships that it is simpler to say less. Tonight, the full moon is shining a light on what that editing has been costing. Virgo, this full moon moves through your second house of money, resources, material security, and your relationship to your own value. The weight you have been carrying may be financial in its surface expression, a money concern, a resource imbalance, a question about whether what you are being given reflects what you are actually worth. But beneath the financial surface, the second house question is always about worth itself. Not about what you have, but about whether you truly believe at the cellular level that you deserve to have it. Virgo has a complicated relationship with deserving. Your sign is one of the most capable and devoted in the zodiac, and also one of the most prone to undervaluing itself. Tonight's full moon is pushing that undervaluation into the light. What it reveals there, you are meant to address. Libra, this full moon is in your own sign, and that makes it the most personally intense lunation of your year. The moon at 12 degrees Libra is moving through your first house, the house of identity, of how you move through the world, of the face you present and the self that operates beneath that face. The sun in your seventh house of partnership is the opposition pulling at you, the reminder that your identity has been shaped, sometimes distorted, by the mirror of your most significant relationships. What have you absorbed from others that is not actually yours? What definition of yourself have you adopted because someone important to you preferred that definition? Tonight is the night when Libra gets to put the scales down. Not forever. Libra will always care about balance. But for this moment you are allowed to ask, what do I actually weigh, without performing for anyone? Scorpio, the full moon moves through your 12th house, the house of hidden things, of what exists just beneath the surface of conscious awareness, of the material that has been accumulating in your interior life without finding an outlet. The 12th house is the house of what we carry, that we do not yet know how to articulate. For Scorpio, this is charged territory. You live closer to the interior than most signs. You have a natural comfort with depth and shadow that other signs do not. But even Scorpio accumulates things it cannot fully see. Even Scorpio has layers beneath the layers it knows. This full moon is reaching into your 12th house with its light, and what it illuminates there may be surprising, not because it is entirely foreign, but because it has been so deeply interior that it has not yet been named. Name it now. Sagittarius, the full moon activates your 11th house of community, friendship, long-range visions, and the groups and collectives that you belong to or aspire to belong to, or aspire to. Something about your social world, about the people and communities that form the outer ring of your life, is reaching a point of honest assessment. Are the communities you belong to genuinely aligned with who you are now? Or are they reflections of who you were when you first entered them? Are the friendships in your life reciprocal, in the truest sense? Are your long-range visions still genuinely yours, or have they been shaped by what other people convinced you to want? Sagittarius is the sign of truth-seeking, and tonight the truth it is being asked to seek is close to home. Capricorn, this full moon lands in your 10th house of career, public life, reputation, and the outer achievements that represent your life's direction. Something at the level of your professional world or public identity is being illuminated. Perhaps it is the gap between the role you are playing publicly and the person you are privately. Perhaps it is an achievement that looks good from the outside but feels hollow from within. Perhaps it is the recognition that the path you are on is one you chose when you were a different version of yourself, and the current version of you is no longer sure it leads somewhere genuinely worth going. The T-square resolves into Capricorn, which means yours is the sign being asked to do the actual constructive work with what this full moon reveals. The path forward is practical. The building starts now. Aquarius, the full moon moves through your 9th house of philosophy, higher understanding, foreign places, publishing, and the large-scale frameworks through which you make sense of your experience. Something in your belief system is reaching its fullness. a worldview you have been operating from, a story about what life is for and how the world works, may be revealing itself as incomplete or no longer adequate to contain everything you have been experiencing. Aquarius is a sign that lives very much in the realm of ideas and systems, and the challenge the ninth house full moon presents is the challenge of updating the map to reflect the territory. The territory of your experience has changed. The map needs to catch up. Pisces. This full moon activates your 8th house of shared resources, deep intimacy, transformation, and the places where your life is genuinely entangled with another person's. The 8th house is the house of what is given and what is owed, of the emotional contracts beneath the conscious agreements, of the depth of trust that makes true vulnerability possible. Something in these deep shared spaces is being brought to light. A financial entanglement may need honest evaluation. A deep emotional intimacy may be moving into new and more honest territory. Or an old wound around trust and being truly known may be surfacing with a specific intention of being released. The North Node in your sign is calling you towards spiritual surrender. This full moon in your 8th house is asking you to release the armor that has been making that surrender impossible. It bears returning to one of the most significant features of this full moon, because it is easy to overlook in the drama of the planetary aspects. Every single planet in the sky right now is moving direct, not one retrograde. This is an unusually rare condition, and in the weeks leading into this full moon, momentum has been building in the collective field in a way that feels noticeably different from the fits and starts of recent months. When planets go retrograde, they appear to move backward from our perspective on Earth, and the energetic effect of this is a kind of pulling back, a revisiting, a requirement to return to what was left incomplete. Retrogrades are necessary. They are the cosmic version of the rest and review that any sustainable process requires. But extended periods of retrograde motion can create a feeling of being stuck, of working hard without visible forward movement, of circling the same territory repeatedly without arriving somewhere new. That circling has been happening. The early months of 2026 carried real retrograde weight. The aftermath of Venus retrograde, the lingering influence of Jupiter's retrograde through late Cancer, the accumulated backlog of things deferred. Now all of that has shifted. All planets direct means the path forward is clear of that particular kind of obstruction. The insights this full moon delivers, the truths it brings to the surface, the honest reckonings it initiates, all of them have the full support of a sky that is moving in one direction, forward. This does not mean that everything becomes easy. A full moon with a Saturn conjunction, a T-square involving Jupiter, and the particular intensity of the Aries Libra axis is not a gentle experience. But the energy available right now is genuinely generative. Whatever you build from this moment has the full cooperation of a sky that is not fighting itself. What you begin now in honesty, in alignment with what this lunation has revealed, will have genuine momentum. The universe right now is fully behind you. Full moons are not endings. This is one of the most important things to understand about lunation cycles, and one of the most commonly misunderstood. The moment of fullness is not a conclusion. It is a disclosure. The light that the full moon produces is not a closing illumination. It is an opening one. The crack that appears tonight, the thing that surfaces, the truth that can no longer be held beneath the waterline, is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of what comes next. In the days following this full moon, Venus in Taurus will continue her grounded, patient work of building real value into the fabric of your daily life. Taurus is a fertile sign. What is planted in Taurus carefully and with real intention grows with unusual reliability, slowly, without drama, but with a consistency that more volatile placements cannot provide. The truths illuminated by this full moon will, in Venus's hands, become seeds rather than wounds. They will find their way into the soil of your actual life as honest information from which something genuinely better can be grown. Mercury in Pisces in the days following the full moon will keep the intuitive channels open. Dreams will be active and often revelatory. Pay attention to them. The images and feelings that arrive in the space between sleep and waking are not random. They are your unconscious processing the disclosure of the full moon through the language of symbol and feeling. Keep something nearby to write in. The communications that arrive through the dreaming mind in the days after a full moon of this magnitude tend to carry precise and useful information, even when they resist literal translation. Jupiter in Cancer continues its generous movement through the emotional world, completing its final months in this sign before it moves into Leo later in the year. In these remaining months, Jupiter is offering an unusual depth of emotional generosity, an expanded capacity for feeling and for being felt, for nurturing and for being nurtured, for belonging in the deepest sense of that word. The full moon may have cracked something open, but Jupiter in Cancer is holding the emotional ground steady enough for you to stand in the opening without being overwhelmed by it. What surfaces is not more than you can hold. You have more capacity right now than you know. Saturn in Aries will continue asking its necessary questions about what is real, what is built honestly, and what is only the appearance of structure. But Saturn is not just a demanding presence. It is a rewarding one in its own slow and uncompromising way. The thing you build in honest alignment with what this full moon has revealed will be built on ground that holds. Not the ground of social performance or managed presentation, but the ground of actual truth. And things built on that ground tend to last. The question this full moon leaves you with is not complicated. It does not require astrology to answer, though astrology helped you see it clearly. It is simply this: now that you know what you have been quietly carrying, what are you going to do with it? Not tomorrow. Not when the time feels right, because the time will always feel slightly uncertain and there will always be a reason to wait a little longer. But now, in the days that immediately follow this lunation, while the disclosure is fresh and the sky is moving forward and Jupiter is holding the emotional ground steady enough for you to move, the pink full moon in Libra has done its work. It found what you were carrying. It brought it into the light. The rest, the naming of it, the decision about what it means, the first honest movement toward something truer, that part belongs to you. There is a version of this moment where you absorb what tonight has illuminated, and then, because the illumination is uncomfortable and the habits of accommodation run deep, you find a way to set it back down, to rebury the weight you have been carrying in slightly different terms, to tell yourself that it was interesting to look at, but that the practical realities of your life do not permit the kind of change that honest reckoning would require. That version is always available. The habit of not changing is very practiced and very comfortable and dressed, in Libra's case, in the language of keeping the peace and thinking of others and not being selfish. But tonight's sky is not asking you to be selfish. It is not asking you to blow up your relationships or abandon your commitments or throw yourself into reckless action because a full moon told you to. Saturn in Aries would not tolerate that, and neither would the resolving energy of this T-square in Capricorn. What is being asked for is something more nuanced and more difficult than dramatic action. It is the simple, private, honest act of acknowledgement, of looking at what you have been carrying and saying, "Yes, I see you. Yes, you are real. Yes, something is going to have to change about how I hold this." That acknowledgement, quiet as it sounds, is not a small thing. It is the beginning of everything. The relationship that can finally hold the real you instead of the edited version begins with the acknowledgement that the editing has been happening. The boundary you have been unable to hold begins with the acknowledgement that you have been crossing your own line. The creative work or the path or the vision that is genuinely yours begins with the acknowledgement that the one you have been following belongs to someone else's idea of what your life should look like. The pink full moon in Libra at 12 degrees and 21 minutes has done something real tonight. It has reached into the interior space where the unnamed weight lives and made it visible, made it undeniable, made it something that can now be worked with rather than simply endured. That is what full moons are for, not to wound, to reveal. and everything that can be revealed can, in time and with honesty, be transformed. You are not broken. You are disclosed, and that is the beginning of everything worth building. If tonight's message found its way to something real in your experience, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Leave a word in the comments about what has been illuminated for you. Subscribe so you are here for what comes next. And until then, take good care of yourself and let what you are carrying be seen.